Dario Amodei published an article in the Wall Street Journal in January asking Donald Trump to put further restrictions on Chinese competitors so the US can maintain an AI monopoly. And he published this article in the Wall Street Journal along with co-author Matt Pottinger, who's a neoconservative China hawk, who was previously the Deputy National Security Advisor to Donald Trump in his first administration. Now, who is Dario Amodei? He is the CEO of the US AI company Anthropic, and some of the main investors in Anthropic are Amazon and Google. They have a direct partnership. So this guy, Dario Amodei, is a key part of Silicon Valley, of the AI big tech community. And in his article in the Wall Street Journal, Amodei asked Donald Trump to put more restrictions on Chinese competitors because he insisted that, quote, the US must lead the world in artificial intelligence to preserve national security, end quote. Essentially, his argument was that the US empire has to dominate the entire world. We can't allow China to have this technology because then they could challenge US hegemony, US dominance. He said that if the US dominates AI with the help of Trump restricting Chinese tech, it would provide a historic advantage for the US. He said AI will become the most powerful and strategic technology in history. He continued noting how AI technology will help to, quote, extend American military preeminence, end quote. So arguing that the Pentagon could use artificial intelligence to threaten other countries like China to maintain its global empire. And he said, quote, if they fail, another nation, most likely China, could surpass us economically and militarily, end quote. So the entire framing is about maintaining US hegemony and weakening China. And what is his solution to try to do this? He calls for export controls, which ban shipments to China of high-end chips needed to train advanced AI models. He said these are a valuable tool in slowing down China's AI development. And he noted that this is bipartisan. These restrictions started under Trump and were expanded under Biden. And now he's saying that the Trump administration, the second Trump term, should go nuclear and just put full-on restrictions, as many restrictions as possible, on China to block off all competition to US Silicon Valley monopolies. Now, that article in the Wall Street Journal was published in early January. A few weeks later, Dario Amodei, this Silicon Valley CEO backed by Amazon and Google, on his website, he published another article arguing again for stronger US export controls on China. And he specifically addressed the competition posed by DeepSeek. In this article, he was even more blatant about his goal. He said clearly that the goal is to maintain a unipolar world in which the US dominates the entire world through the use of AI technology. And he said, the question is whether China will be able to get millions of chips, which it will need in order to develop its own AI tech. And he said, if China can, we will live in a bipolar world where both the US and China have powerful AI models. But he doesn't want a bipolar world, yet alone a multipolar world. He wants a unipolar world, a global dictatorship controlled by the US with no competition. And he said, if the US puts more and more restrictions on China, and if the US prevents China from getting chips, he wrote, quote, we'll at least temporarily live in a unipolar world where only the US and its allies have these models, end quote. And then he said that, quote, in this world, the US and its allies might take a commanding and long-lasting lead on the global stage. Well-enforced export controls are the only thing that can prevent China from getting millions of chips and are therefore the most important determinant of whether we end up in a unipolar or bipolar world, end quote. So this is Silicon Valley's real goal, and we very rarely hear it stated so honestly, so openly. These powerful tech CEOs backed by Amazon and Google, they're saying they want the United States to be the unipolar power that controls the entire world. And what's so funny about this, and so ironic, is that these tech CEOs don't realize the implications of what they're saying. because they live in a little bubble surrounded by US imperialists funded by the US government with big contracts, and they're surrounded by other big tech billionaires who have the same worldview. And at the end of his article, he warned of a, quote, authoritarian government that has committed human rights violations, has behaved aggressively on the world stage, and will be far more unfettered in these actions if they're able to match the US in AI, end quote. That quote is so funny because until the end, it sounds like he's describing the United States. The US is a police state where every year on average, police kill more than 1,000 people. The US has less than 5% of the global population, but roughly 25% of all prisoners on Earth. And we know that the US National Security Agency, the NSA, spies on everyone all around the world, including heads of state. This was exposed by the NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden over a decade ago. And what's funniest of all is this tech CEO, Dario Amodei, accuses China of behaving aggressively on the world stage. There is no country on earth that comes even remotely close to the United States when it comes to aggression on the world stage. According to the US government's own data, the US has militarily intervened in the majority of all countries on earth. From 1798 until 2022, the US carried out 469 military interventions around the world, and from 1991 until 2022, the US carried out 251 military interventions, according to official data from the US Congressional Research Service. Meanwhile, do you know what year it was the last time China was involved in a war? 1979. China has not been involved in a war for more than 45 years, and yet Silicon Valley tech CEOs are claiming China is aggressive on the world stage while arguing in support of US unipolar dominance